Hello, gathering groups. We'd like to continue our discussion about cruciform conversations. And tonight, we're going to take our time this evening to talk about self-understanding. We're going to be trying to help you guys understand how can we recognize our emotional triggers? What is an emotional trigger? And how can we recognize our own tendency to be triggered when this happens? So we're going to look at a diagram together to help us understand the concept of emotional triggering. So what we call hot topic issues, these are the kinds of issues like race, sometimes gender, politics, religion. These are the types of issues where we tend to become emotionally triggered and then communication breaks down. And a hot topic issue is one where there are deep concerns plus strong differences plus threats, either real or perceived threats to these concerns. These deep concerns can be things like our deep values, our core beliefs, our strongest convictions. And these are things that we carry deep inside of us. And then, of course, when we get into different conversations with people who have differing convictions and beliefs and opinions about things, then sometimes those conversations can feel threatening, whether people are attempting to be threatening or acting in threatening ways, or we're just feeling threatened because of how important these concerns are to us. But at any rate, the hot topics are marked by deep concerns, strong differences, and threats. And when you get those three things together, we have intense emotion. We have an emotional situation. Emotion is something that we can have on a volume level or an intensity level, anywhere from 0 to 10. We're going to just use that 0 to 10 scale to talk about emotion. A low level of emotionality or emotional volume would be what we're just calling emotional arousal. And that would be where our emotional volume is maybe at a 1 or a 2 or a 3. And that's probably where our emotions are most of the time. And they don't really get in the way and they're very helpful for us. But if we get to add to about a 4 on an emotional scale, then that's where triggering can happen. And we're in that 4, 5, 6, 7 range of emotional intensity or emotional volume. And that's what we're calling emotional triggering. We're going to come back and talk about that in a moment. If our emotion spikes to an intensity level of 8, 9, or 10, that's what we call emotional hijacking or a brain hijack. We're going to talk just for a moment about that. A brain hijack is where something triggers us to such a high degree, this 8, 9, 10 level of emotion, where the signals that are coming in go right to our emotional center of our brain, which is known as the limbic center, limbic system. And in the limbic system, there's a little structure called the amygdala. And the amygdala then sends a signal to our neocortex, and it shuts down that part of our brain. It's our reasoning brain, our good judgment brain, our self-control brain. And that gets shut down or goes offline. And the amygdala sends a signal to our brainstem to activate our fight or flight system. So we want to try to avoid being in the emotional hijack level of intensity from 8, 9, 10 in intensity. If we get there, it's just, we're not going to be able to have a cruciform conversation. But if we're in that triggering range, emotions from 4 to 7 or so in the intensity level, that's where we're going to actually be able to learn from each other. We're going to be motivated to share our deep concerns, but we can also learn to listen to our emotions and then be able to guide them so we can learn from each other. And so triggering is actually a place where we can learn the practices of love, and we can also learn from each other in this state. So we're going to look at what happens when we hit this triggering range of 4 or above, 4 to 7 in emotion. There's a cycle of conflict that kicks in. The first aspect of that cycle is what we're calling reactions. We have emotional reactions such as anger, fear, shame, offense, feeling insulted, intimidated, or shut down. When we have those emotional triggering or emotional reactions, what tends to happen is we get defensive. We start to defend our rights and we defend our rightness. We start to want to give more right treatment and less wrong treatment from others, more respect from them. And we also defend the rightness of our opinions. What happens next then is oftentimes when we perceive that somebody has wronged us in some way, or they've maybe dismissed or dishonored a deep value of ours, we want to make them pay. Through verbal dialogue and through debate, we want to attack them, criticize them, intimidate them back if we felt intimidated by them. We might use sarcasm, belittling, or even the cold shoulder to get revenge or to make them pay. Another thing that happens in this cycle of conflict when we're triggered is rumors. What we'll end up doing is when we feel we've been wronged by a person, we'll go talk to somebody else about that person, and we'll tarnish their reputation, their character, we'll gossip about them, and misrepresent them. And all of this is an attempt to make us feel better and to make them look worse. And then finally, resentments is what kicks in this cycle of conflict. We carry bitterness and grudges and unforgiveness, and sometimes even contempt toward other people, because again, not just that they hold different views, but that we somehow feel threatened or wronged, dismissed, misunderstood, or judged by them. So this is the cycle of conflict. These things kick in pretty quickly when we get triggered. And so we're going to be talking in the next couple weeks about how do we respond in a different way than these cycle of conflict patterns. But for tonight, our activity and our focus is going to be this. What we're going to be focusing on is self-understanding. During your group time today, we'd like you simply to just notice any triggers that you might have, any emotional triggers. You'll notice these because it'll involve a shift from either that zero emotionality or the low level of 1 to 3, usually positive emotions. There'll be a shift into a higher intensity of emotion, usually negative emotions. So just pay attention to what's going on inside your emotions, inside your body, and notice if you have any triggers. Once you feel you're noticing a trigger, then we'd just like you to see if you can name that emotion. What is the name of the emotion that you're feeling? Is it anger? Is it frustration? Is it irritation? Is it sadness? Whatever it is, just see if you can notice the trigger and then name the emotion. Once you've been able to name the emotion, we'd like you to go a little bit deeper then and see if you can identify what's your underlying concern. What's the deeper concern that might feel threatened to you? This again is that area of a deeper core belief, a conviction, or a value. So see if you can identify that level, that concern. And then finally, we'd also then like you to notice and connect the dots between what it is that was threatening. What was it that might have triggered you? Was there something that somebody said or did, a look on somebody's face, a tone of voice that felt threatening in some way? So we just want you to do some self-understanding today. Notice triggers, name emotions, identify deeper concerns, and then connect the dots to see if you can identify what was it that triggered you. In the next couple of weeks, we're going to be taking you further into some of the positive ways that we can start to apply cruciform conversation principles. Thanks.